Welcome back to the channel. This video is all about the Paternoster Rig, and this is by far my favourite rig to use whenever I'm sea fishing. I'm going to show 3 different ways to tie this rig, and I think it's the easiest ways to set them up if you're a beginner. The second way is definitely the quickest way to tie the rig as well, so you can get fishing much quicker when you get to a spot. I've included a few fishing clips just to show the versatility of this rig. I use it when I'm fishing in deep, rocky marks. It works great in estuaries too, to target flatfish. And it's absolutely ideal for dropping off the end of a pier, or if you're fishing from a boat as well. I've caught such a big range of fish on it, and I've even caught a couple of lobsters using this rig as well. And because you can add as many hooks as you like to this rig, you've always got the chance of catching more than one fish at one time. Like on this recent trip, where I caught this nice coal fish and a really nice wrasse on the same cast. The first way that I'm going to show to tie the rig is really easy, because you only need to know and remember one knot. And whichever knot you usually tie a hook on with is the only knot you have to remember for this. And for me, that's a half-blood knot. I'll quickly show how it's tied. You take the line and put it through the eye of the weight or the hook, and twist the line over itself 6 times. And then you want to feed the end of the line back through the loop that's created at the end of the twists. And then you just have to pull it tight. You should always wet your knots before you pull them tight. I'm not going to be fishing with this, so I didn't bother for this video. But most knots, if you tie it with dry line, it's going to be much weaker than if you wet it first. So to tie this method, you just have to have a couple of swivels spaced out on your line, with another piece of line coming off of them that you can attach a hook to. And you can add as many hooks as you like. I usually just use 2. The only downside to this method is that you have to tie 9 knots in total to add 2 hooks. The next method I'm going to show is a lot quicker. You don't need any extra tackle for this method, just your hooks and your weight, and 2 short pieces of line that are attached using a really simple knot. You just come up whichever height you like from the bottom of your line and hold the extra piece of line alongside your main line, and then you need to bring the lines over themselves to make a loop. Just fold them over themselves to make a loop, and then you want to take the 2 loose pieces of line through that loop twice. So you just come through the back of the loop twice, pull both those pieces of loose line through, and then pull this tight. Again, I would recommend wetting this so that it doesn't get weak. So now we have 2 extra pieces of line coming off our main line, and you just want to trim off the top one to leave the bottom one dangling off. To add another hook to this, we just repeat that process. We come down whichever distance you like, and again we bring an extra piece of line over, hold it alongside the main line, and make a loop. So you just hold the lines together, fold them over themselves to make a loop, and then you just bring the 2 loose pieces of line through the back of the loop twice. And again, I would recommend wetting this knot before you pull it tight. So again, we have 2 extra pieces of line coming off the main line, and again you just want to trim off the top one. You can have these droppers coming off the line as long or as short as you like. Most of the time I have them about a foot long, or maybe just a little bit longer than that. The main thing is though, you don't want your bottom one to be longer than the length of line going to your weight, because that could potentially interrupt your feel for any bites you get. And again, for this half blood knot, you loop the line over itself 6 times and then pass it through the little loop that's created at the end of the twists. And again, you should always wet this knot. And that's it, good to go. You can just tie your hook straight onto that. This is the rig that I use 99% of the time when I'm fishing. It's so quick to set up and it's so simple. The rig works perfectly fine just like this, but sometimes I add some coloured floating beads to the line before I tie the hooks on. These really aren't needed, but it can act as an extra attractant to some fish. Flatfish in particular are said to be attracted to bright coloured beads. Even though this rig is really simple and quick to tie, it's still always annoying if you get snagged and lose your rigs. So the next way I'm going to show is a really good way to use the rig if you're fishing in snaggy ground. It's just adding a swivel at the bottom of the line and a weaker length of line down to your weight. I'm snagged here, and even though I have to snap the line, I get the whole rig back and only lose the weight on the bottom. And that's because the very bottom section of line is half the breaking strain of my main line and the line on the rig. And because you don't lose the rig using this method, you can get back to fishing much quicker. And when the fish are biting, you want to get back in as soon as possible and catch nice fish like this big wrasse I caught soon after that snag. So this next way I'm going to show is really just a variation on the first two methods. So instead of having your main line coming straight down to your weight, you want to cut off a section. And then you're going to replace this with a much weaker piece of line, so that if your weight gets stuck, that's all you lose. I'll just demonstrate here how easy it is to free your rig if you get snagged. Sometimes you can get your weight out, so you don't want to use too weak a line, but you want to make sure that this bottom section is going to be the piece that snaps, so you get your whole rig back. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did enjoy the video, let me know in the comments and I'll make a few more like this in the future. Thanks for watching. Cheers.